Welcome to Weekday Chat again. We're glad you're with us. This is Derek, and I'm Steve, and we're here today to talk about hospitality and how to do it better. Challenged by Luke Sunday, and I hope you were as well. And what a great sermon it was.
Oh, yeah.
And Luke's main statement was that an open heart to God means an open home to others. And that statement alone just challenged me. You too?
Yeah. I mean, just like he said, open up my home. And the thing is, even some of the stuff we'll talk about today is just how we should and how hard it can be.
Is it easy for you, hospitality?
I would say no. And that's, I think to some that might be surprising. I feel like I'm an extroverted person. I love being around people.
Yeah, I'd say that.
Yeah, people light me up. But it's hard, and I think even for us, and maybe others can relate to this, but for us, when we were down in Knoxville, we didn't have a lot of money, and we were afraid of our house itself. Is it too small, and is this enough? So that, I think, is always in the back of my mind, a challenge of what will people think if I invite them into my house.
Which is so important because that's one of the American problems. I think we do think we have to have things perfect. My mom was a great hostess, but everything had to be perfect. Like, I remember her saying one time, I want to have these people over, but I got to get those new curtains in the bedroom first.
Oh, yeah.
Mom, what's that got to do with a company? You know?
Yeah, the new curtains are never going to see.
But yeah, exactly. Yeah. But to her, that was so important. And I think, don't be so stressful about it. And I think it is important what you're saying, because I think the easier we make it, and the simpler we make it, it encourages other people who feel like you do, like when you were down south, that it doesn't have to be fancy, right? It can be very simple.
Yeah, and even making the invite, and how do I open up? I think that's my question. I feel like for you, because I see, Steve, one of the things you're great at is engaging other people and learning, even if you've already, I know I've done this all the time, I feel like I've already met that person. You know what I'm saying? I think I've met you. I think I should know your name. You're great at remembering names. You're great at getting out there and knowing them. So I would want to know, give me the advice. As a young man
See, I can be a hospitable person in my persona.
Okay.
I'm not very good in my home, because still my weakness, my sin is to protect my space too much. Okay. To go home and be away from everything rather than opening my doors. I need this sermon series really to challenge me. And Diane and I have already talked about what steps we're going to make, and neighbors want to more fervently pray for, things like that.
Maybe there's a good question there is, one of the things Luke mentioned with hospitality, and he broke down, and usually I don't love the Greek.
Right.
Great.
Right.
But he broke it down, and it was that philoxenia, how it's the love, that brotherly love of strangers.
Yes.
Man, I love that. So for you guys, you said you have a plan. What are some of your barriers, boundaries, and what's the plan? What's some baby steps people can take to do that?
I think, for one thing, you can walk intentionally.
Okay.
Like as you walk through your neighborhood, wherever you go, be aware of people you're walking by, people you've seen. I have started stopping people who I've seen before as they're walking. If I've even been mowing, I've turned the tractor off. To start. I've seen you walk by. Who are you? I don't know where you live or anything. And just to start bridging. And we're going to have a neighborhood party in July.
Okay.
And so we're going to do about 2 or 3 streets of people to come over. I don't know if anybody will come or not, but we'll have a lot of burgers to eat for leftovers.
Is this like I'm sending out invites to people?
Yeah, I think we're going to put a card in the door or something like that. Just invite them and see what happens.
Just ring a doorbell. Hey,
yes. But I think if we're not intentional, it never happens. So we're starting a list of people that we want to make sure that we're going to just check them off as we do that. And if you don't plan it, if you're not intentional, it's probably not going to happen.
Well, and even the intentionality behind it. One of the things Luke mentioned from stage, we handed out. I think people had those cards, the grids. And I even know we did a study, that Art of Neighboring, and I can remember it was the get to know your neighbors all around you, right?
Yeah.
That same idea, just to get to know their names. And I think one of the barriers to hospitality for us was we had been in the neighborhood long enough. We should have known their names by that time.
Yes.
And getting over the awkwardness. I feel like being
Right.
comfortable with the awkwardness of I'm going to have to go introduce myself, and I should have done this a long time ago.
Yes.
But it is paid off because of it. So I think it's
Absolutely.
one of the boundaries.
Well, I think so too, and just I think to me it seems like even more so on a socioeconomic level than a racial
Oh yeah.
stretch as well. It's when you have haves and have-nots. But usually in our neighborhoods we're not going to find that very much.
Yeah.
But I think another thing, I feel like I'm throwing my mom under the bus, and I don't want to do that. But she also had this, because she loved to have people in, but she'd say, if somebody called to invite him over, she'd go, oh, no, we can't come over because we came to your place last time.
Oh, so we got a balanced scale there.
Which is so rooted in, like the Greco-Roman world of the Mediterranean, they were hospitable and for a moral sense, but there was obligation tied to it.
Yeah.
That if I'm letting you in, then you owe me something. That was built into that culture. In the Jewish hospitality, they did it based on the patriarchal period in the early Old Testament. Abraham welcoming the visitors, it was part of the Mediterranean world. You should do that. It was a moral thing to do. And this is where Christianity went beyond just the Jewish culture, because Acts says they met together with glad and sincere hearts, and they opened their homes to one another, as well as meeting in the temple. And the difference is, when we look at people who are strangers, we see the face of Jesus. Whatever you've done to the least of these brothers of mine, you've done it to me. Yeah. We see people creating the image, and that's what moves us as people of true hospitality, I think.
Yeah. Well, I was reading, and we talked about this a little bit before we started recording. Your book, it's an authentic, not your book, but the book you recommended to me, The Authentic Experience by Corey Trimble.
Yeah.
And one of the things he mentions in this book, and it's the book's talking about how to reach out to others and really start developing those relationships. One of the things he said is, when I became a Christian, I became very judgmental right away, because I saw all those things that I'd left behind, and those people, I see what they're doing. Yeah. And he said, I actually had to hit my knees and pray, God, give me a heart to love others. And I can see where he's coming from, because it is something I think we've put in some sort of teaching to say, look, you got to pull away from the world, be different from the world. And what happens is we begin to shun the world and shut them off.
That's right.
And yet we're called to be light within. So I love, he starts with this idea of, if you want to get to that hospitality, that kind of reaching out to others, it started with that brokenness of saying, God, you got to change me first. And then we'll start.
And the church isn't very good about that, because we're not comfortable with people unlike us, right? And we do tend to be judgmental in our spirits, and we got to lay that down. But Jesus came not to condemn the world, but to save the world. And that's the kind of spirit we want to have toward other people as well.
So with hospitality itself, is there specifics that, if I'm trying to do this, I want to be a hospitable person, that you would say, these are some things we really need to be shooting towards?
I think we got to keep it very simple. I'm to the point. Don't set a table. See, and my wife loves to do that. She usually does it, but I think
you're really good at cooking desserts too. So.
I am, yes. But if you have new people, and I think it's important to ask somebody to bring something. If people feel they've brought something to the gathering, they feel more a part of it than being totally provided for. I think, when they have to go through and pick up their plate, it seems like a little thing, but I think that's less formal and structured than at a table that's already set. Because anybody can do that, can put some plates out, or paper plate, maybe even paper plates, disposable stuff. So it doesn't feel overwhelming to them, and we've got to work at being less formal. It's a less formal society. There are those occasions for formality, and we're celebrating, but not when we're, I think, building relationships with people, And I think you sort of have to think ahead of time. What are some things we can just bring up along the way, And we're emphasizing also, ask. Ask questions about their lives. Ask about their story. Where they're from, where they grew up, their family situation. It's being, you got to be genuinely interested in people.
Yeah. And I feel like, do you think, because I know we all, as followers, we want to make disciples. We have this goal in mind. Yes. Do you feel like sometimes it's hard because, okay, I want to develop a relationship because I know I want this eventually. So it's almost, I'm starting this relationship with, I don't want to say false motives, but I feel like it's one of those where it's a leading relationship instead of just natural, and how we have to navigate. between, which is not easy.
It's hard, and some of those things you're going to be better at it because
Yeah.
the people are easier to build a relationship with. Other people aren't as it's not as easy to build a relationship. We can only do what we can do. It's not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
You know, you'll blow it. You'll say something stupid. You might say something offensive you didn't mean to, but don't shut down. You know, we just keep working at it all the time, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's where I love this Corey Trimble book. One of the things he mentions in here about building those relationships was routines. Go throughout your daily routine, and there's people you come in to where he was to the point of I go to the same Starbucks and I try to same time of day, maybe two. I had a missionary friend of mine in Jordan. You talk about that Middle Eastern hospitality, take you in when they have nothing. It was awesome to see.
Right.
But he said, I go to the same grocery store at the same time because I'm building it. Go back to the intentional relationship with this one man. And it's not, there's not the leading yet. If God wants me to go there, I will. But this is me simply slowing down, listening to him with the intentionality of building a friendship with him.
That's right.
I loved how he put that. It was something, again, go to the simplicity of it. Just simplify it, just to be very intentional and interested in people.
That's right.
That was good.
That's how Jesus was, right?
Yeah.
So that's the art of neighboring, and we're learning just like you are. You know, we're plugging away, trying to do it better, right?
Yeah,
Derek?
definitely. Slowly but surely. Slowly but surely. So, anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I think the only thing I would say, write your names down, who that's going to be, and then mark calendar days. This is for hospitality. If we don't hone it down that simply, it's not going to get done. This is hospitality night. Who are we going to have this time? Yeah. You know, things like that. And make it easy, make it simple. There are a lot of cheap meals you can make too. It does not have to be expensive. You know?
Yeah. And I think that idea, it's a habit. And I feel like it's hard starting new habits anytime. It's awkward. So, no, it's going to be a little awkward. But having the plan, I think is huge to set that aside and be intentional with it. And I like the idea of starting simply. Let's learn some names. And then just one little goal. I think of what about Bob?
Little steps. Baby
steps, Bob.
That's
baby
right.
steps.
I can't believe you ended by quoting what about Bob? But go ahead. That's okay.
And you're welcome. Anyways, guys, we're so glad to share this as we're learning this study, as we're going through this month on hospitality and open up our homes. Hopefully next week you guys can join us again with Weekday Chat, or hopefully we see you in person on Sunday as well as we enjoy serving.